All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to episode 1001, Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you to everyone out there, as always, for watching, for listening, following, subscribing. Appreciate you guys very, very much. Today's show, as always, is presented by Sunny Reds. We were just there last night, 1841 Aber Road, just down the road from Highmark Stadium. Great wings, beers, vibes, good time. This is, well, normally our midweek episode day later because there's been a lot of stuff going on, but as my weekly always appearance, my guy, Matt Warren from SB Nation. What's up, dude? I tell you what, strap it in because things are starting to happen. We're recording this Wednesday at about 1:30. Players are getting released. Players want trades, big names. This is a fun week. I know it is for you as a guy who does this for a living now. What's up, man? How you doing?
Yeah, well, first, congratulations on 1,000 episodes. That's, I mean, just an insane number. So you should be very proud of that.
Well, you've played a big part in this now over the last season,
Yeah, yeah.
the last full NFL season. Quick story, then we're gonna get going.
Okay.
So if you didn't watch the video, everybody, I'm telling everyone out there who's listening or watching the show, it's because there is no video. I recorded episode 1000 live from Sunny Reds on Tuesday night. Joe Biscaglia, Tyler Dunn. It was an incredible conversation, but there was an issue with my laptop and there was an issue with the internet there. And long story short, the video sucked. It just disappeared for long stretches. This is why I always say I love people when you watch the videos, but make sure you are subscribed on the audio side because that's the only place you're going to get every single episode in its entirety. So if you are a YouTube consumer only and you're a fan of the show and you didn't see a video from last night's live show with Joe and Tyler, um, go to Apple, go to Spotify, somewhere and listen. I promise you this, Matt, everyone out there who's watching or listening today, it's worth it. Those guys were insightful. It was
Oh, yeah.
entertaining. We spent a good chunk of time actually talking about their lives, their careers, the changes over their last 7 years, because both of them were on my show very, very early on. A lot has changed in their lives professionally, have kids, wives now.
Definitely personally. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Joe B was still at Channel 7, and Tyler Dunn was at Bleacher Report the first time I had those guys on. So a lot has changed. So we spent a lot of time talking about that sports media, and then we dived into some Bill stuff. Really, really good stuff. So make sure you go and follow and subscribe to Talking Buffalo on the audio side. Let's get down to business because we got a lot that I want to get to today. This is going to be kind of a Matt Warren um, wish list of sort. We're going to talk about the players that you would like to see because again, it's all moving now, folks. The dead period for now is over. I'm going to get some thoughts on what Bills players you'd like to see resigned.
Sure.
A couple restructures, perhaps. In fact, there will be some restructures for sure. Obviously, maybe a couple of extensions, and then we'll dip into the free agent market. And with what time we got left near the end, we'll spend some time talking about some big developments going on around the league, including literally 5 minutes before we went on the air to record this. DK Metcalf has requested a trade, and the Seahawks are going to explore that. Obviously, they could tie that into the Buffalo Bills. Let's start here. Last week, not long after we talked, Khalil Shakir signed a 4-year extension with the Bills. 4 years, I think $53 million has been reported, like 20 million or so guaranteed. Let's start here. I want you to give me a breakdown. I know you've been working on it for SB Nation today. A breakdown on his contract. And now that you know what the actual numbers are, because a lot of times a player will sign a contract and it doesn't always, by the way, Max Crosby off the board. This is going to be a lot of stuff going on in real time. Max Crosby signed a big, big extension. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. I told you, this is craziness now. I love it. I live for this stuff. Anyway, back to Khalil Shakir. Sometimes you don't know what a contract is until you see all the details. You've seen all the details now. What are they? What do you think of this deal?
Yeah. I mean, it was reported as a 4-year, $60 million deal. And I thought that that was still kind of a discount for Shakir. I think on the open market, he's probably an 18 or $19 million a year player. But when you dive into the actual contract, it's more like a 3 year, $32 million deal.
Mhm.
And so like it's about $10.8 million per season over the course of these first 3 years, and then kind of a Bills option of $12 million. We'll see, and another Bills option of $13 million a year after that. So I think it's a very team friendly deal for the Buffalo Bills. Um, Shakir obviously had incentive to do that. He's only made $3 million over the course of his career as a later round draft pick. Um, if he gets injured this year and can't earn money, whatever, he locks in a whole bunch of salary with this contract. So I think he had just as much incentive to get it done as the Bills did, and so that's why it kind of sort of came together the way that it did. Um, like I said, even it's a very team friendly deal because of when it was signed and Shakir's unwillingness to take a risk and bet on himself long term. But again, that's not a dig. Like you play wide receiver, like tear your ACL, do
Sure.
something crazy like that, and like then you don't sign a big contract next offseason. And so I think it also kind of shows the difference between him and James Cook, where James Cook is a little bit more willing to wait and try to get that number. Um, obviously requesting top of the market um, salary, and like he's a second round pick, so he's going to earn a little bit more than Shakir over the course of his career, and he knows this is probably his one bite at the free agency apple as a running back, and so I at least understand why James Cook is kind of playing a little bit of hardball, but that Shakir had the push to sign the deal now, and the Bills gladly took what they could, getting a nice team friendly deal.
Now, are you of the same mindset as me that, and this is no disrespect to Khalil Shakir, I love the signing. I think it is a great deal. You just kind of laid it out there. I think he is a very valuable player on this team. So I love the deal, and I love it even more now that I know the details.
Mhm.
But do you think this is more of a situation where, because a lot of people are like, well, where's Benford's deal? Where's Rizzo's deal? Where's James Cook? Is this more of a situation? It's not necessarily that Khalil Shakir was the Bills' top priority. It was more Khalil Shakir was probably the closest in terms of dollars and cents with the team. And this was the easiest deal to put together, not necessarily their highest priority. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I definitely agree with that. And there's another thing that Shakir's deal actually lowered his cap hit slightly for the 2025 season. So they didn't, it wasn't going to cost them a whole lot, or sorry, it actually freed up cap space for them. And so they were able to get this done relatively simply. Whereas, like, I think a Christian Benford deal may actually increase his cap hit depending on kind of how they structure it, because his
Right.
number is going to be higher than Shakir, I would think, as far as average annual. And so if he signs like a $12 million signing bonus, whereas Shakir signed a $7 million one, his Benford's cap hit's actually going to go up. And so Rousseau, you can bring down his number, I think, with an extension, but Rousseau has zero reason to sign a contract extension now. His salary this season is already fully guaranteed. As a former first round pick, he's made a good chunk of money over the course of his NFL career. He knows he's going to get top 10, top 12 defensive end money next year. And as we're seeing, Max Crosby signing a new deal right now, and Miles Garrett's probably going to sign a new deal in the next couple months. And so like the top of that market's going to keep going up. He's already got cash. There's no reason for Rousseau to even be coming off his number at all right now. And so I think those guys are both going to wait another year because of those two things.
Let's let's talk. You mentioned James Cook. Let's just circle back to him quickly here. Tuesday, some more I guess we'll call them shenanigans with Saquon Barkley getting $20 million over the next year.
Yeah.
Props to him, man. And props to the Eagles for being out in front of that. Those are the things Joe B talked about this on the show last night, and so did Tyler a little bit. These are the things that free agents remember when a team takes care of their players. I mean, it's also, cash up front. Well, the salary thing is a whole different story, but just the way they rewarded him after just one season. But anyway, James Cook with multiple quote tweets, it seems to me, and from what I gathered, it's not as serious as a lot of fans think. Like James Cook does want to get paid. He ain't joking about that shit. He does want to get his money. He wants to get his bag. But I think a lot of fans are acting like James Cook is saying, "Give me the money right now, or I want out, and I'm going to be a very big problem for you." From what I gather, that's not really the real story. Not to say it won't happen or that it can happen, but right now, from what I gather, like the Bills aren't really too concerned about what James Cook is doing on social media, and he might be doing it at least in part, although his message is for real. But
Mhm.
let's just say it this way. Don't take what he's doing too goddamn serious. I was about a week or so ago, maybe not so much now. But anyway, you thought he's still messing
Yeah,
around, man. He wants that money. That ain't no joke.
yeah. I've made sarcastic comments in meetings with my bosses before, like when I really want something, but I don't always just want to be like super serious about it. I don't like. I'm not worried that James Cook's going to hold out into the regular season. Like I so yeah, he's making sure that other folks are doing his work for him, tweeting at the Bills or commenting on it, churning up support, all this other stuff. But I don't necessarily think I'm like worried about James Cook being a locker room cancer right now.
Right. I agree
Okay.
100%. And again, that's what I'm hearing, that it's not what
Yeah.
it all seems, and that he is one of the most liked guys in that locker room. Let's just put it that way. So let's
Yeah.
not go calling the guy, a greedy son of a bitch. I know a lot of people out there ready
No,
to ship his ass out, and what are we, first couple days of March? If you could get a third or fourth for him, do it now. No,
it's a
that's not
negotiate. No, it's a negotiating tactic.
yeah.
I don't think it's a particularly like animosity driven one. He's going to throw out 50 million. There has to be part of him that knows he's not getting that, but like it's still kind of driving that conversation. Um, I'm definitely not trading him. I would. This is a Super Bowl year for the Bills. Why would they get rid of probably their second best offensive player? I just don't get. It doesn't make sense to me. But I don't
None at all. Let me set the stage here for today and also for next week. So typically Matt is my Wednesday guest, my midweek guest. Things this week and next week as well are different. This week it was because it was episode 1000 and I had that pre-booked with Joe and with Tyler to be able to do a live show. Next week it's because free agency is going to be going on already. Next time I have you on. And typically, if you don't know this already, Matt and I record late morning. We can't do that around this time of year because too many things happen. It's funny. If we would have recorded this like we normally do, even at 10 o'clock, even though nothing with the Bills has happened, just in literally the last hour before we hit record here and got on these mics, um, Christian Kirk is being cut. DJ Lockett was cut from Seattle. Don't really think much about him, but Christian Kirk is a guy, that's Josh Allen's boy for sure. And now DK Metcalf is requesting a trade. And we'll get to Max Crosby here in just a minute because that is a very, very big deal, man. But anyway, let's start. We'll go with the lesser name first. I don't want to spend much time on Lockett. I really don't think that's a guy that fits the Bills. Christian Kirk, somebody who I could see already, Bills Mafia, some content creators, some media people already bringing him
know.
up. Christian Kirk has been cut. Again, that is a close friend, a golf buddy of Josh Allen. In fact, was just a photo of those two together with a group literally last night on social media. Very talented receiver. I want to get your thoughts on this. Last year, he got hurt. He's only 27 catches, 379 yards in 8 games. He had 57 for 787 last year. 2022, he was great. 84 catches for over 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. The dude could play. But here was my
Mhm.
thing, and I've reached out to a couple people trying to get some perspective, and I'm getting different opinions right now. Bruce Nolan, Joe Marino, I've reached out to both of them already. I looked at the PFF metrics. Christian Kirk played 81.7% of his snaps in the slot last year,
Yes, he
just
did.
18.3 on the outside. The year before that, 71.9, less than 28 on the outside. So this guy over the last 2 years has played like 72% or more of his snaps in the slot. Conversely, Khalil Shakir has been the same kind of player for the Bills. It doesn't seem like a fit. Bruce kind of said to me, I agree, but that don't mean they're not going to have interest. And Joe was talking about earlier in his career where Christian Kirk did play a lot more on the outside. Anyway, is this a guy right now, his release? And we're probably, by the time people will listen to this, there might be 5 more receivers that are out there available. But right now, we're talking about Christian Kirk. Is this somebody, we're going to be hitting on your wish list? Is this somebody who you may want to add to it?
Well, the thing about Kirk is that he's available now. I mean, they're releasing him before the league year starts, so they could
Yep.
negotiate with him like immediately. So even theoretically, by the time this podcast drops, like he could have a new contract. We just saw that with Alex Kappa, who was released by the Bengals yesterday and already signed by the Raiders today on Wednesday, at like what 1 o'clock or whatever. So, so it could all be like out the window. I agree with both Bruce and Joe Marino. Like as soon as I saw his name come up, I'm like, it's a very interesting timing on this right after the Khalil Shakir extension because like they play, like you said, the same kind of role. And so unless they're planning on moving one of those two guys outside, then I don't really see it happening. The other thing about Christian Kirk or DK Metcalf or insert any like super high priced wide receiver. Oh yeah, Kirk is only 28, which is like prime time for wide receivers. Like that's not a concern. DK Metcalf, prime time for receiver. That's not a concern. But both of those guys are probably going to want more money than the Bills are going to want to spend because they did just extend Shakir at over $10 million a year. They have Curtis Samuel making like what $9 million or something like that in 2025. They've got Dawson Knox making whatever it is, 9 million, something like that. They've got a first round pick in Dalton Kincaid. Like they've already spent a ton of resources at that position. And so signing another expensive free agent on top of it really isn't great for like roster building. I could see them spending a first round pick on that guy as a means to like look forward to next year and
Sure.
replace Curtis Samuel on the roster or replace like or find like an outside receiver to stretch the field in that like DK Metcalf mold. But like I don't see them signing those two expensive receivers when or either of those two expensive receivers when they have invested so much literal cash at that position right now too.
I'm looking right now. Okay, so we'll get to Max Crosby in a second. Holy shit, did he get a lot of guaranteed money? It was a
Yes.
3-year extension, 106.5 million. That includes 91.5 million guaranteed, making him the highest non-paid quarterback in NFL history. No longer in play for the Bills, but I do think this might affect the Bills because of Myles Garrett. So we'll swing back to that in just a second, but I kind of want to stick with these receivers because you didn't mention DK Metcalf. Literally right before we went on the air here, he's requested a trade. Jordan Schultz, I believe, was the first to report, and now other people are as well. Bills Mafia is all over that. This is the guy. Look, I'm very much team allocate your resources on the defensive line because we've seen what happens in Kansas City or the secondary. Not so much. I felt like give me a complimentary or secondary receiver. DK Metcalf might be an exception though, Matt Warren, because I mean, this guy is unbelievable. And you want to talk about a fit, you want to talk about a vertical threat, a guy who can win the line,
Right.
guy who can get deep. He is a package right now. Does that give you any potential pause? Because you just talked about, with the resources and receivers, somebody with the skill level of DK Metcalf get you perhaps to change your mind a little bit, but with the caveat, he ain't a free agent. You're going to trade for him, and it's not going to be for nothing. So I don't know. What are you thinking right now? Early initial in the moment, literally heat of the moment thoughts with DK Metcalf. I'll give you the right to change your mind down the road too.
If I'm just looking at the player, he's like the perfect fit for what they need. They need a guy that can add long speed to their room. Like I don't know if he'd be running like go routes at every single play, but it would be a lot of them. Okay, like they need somebody to take the top off to open up the underneath for Shakir, open up the underneath for Kincaid and Knox, and they just don't have that on their roster. And so when we get to our free agency wish list later, I'm going like bargain basement versions of DK Metcalf, right? Like it's the only piece is the compensation piece. Like you're going to trade at least a first round pick for him because the Bills are picking 30th. They're going to be trading at least the first round pick plus something else premium to get over whoever's like in the middle of the draft that wants to trade for Metcalf. And then you're going to sign him to a huge extension at the top of the market, making him a top 10 paid wide receiver in the league. I just don't see the Bills being in a position to do that from a roster building standpoint, which, again, when they were planning it out, they knew that this was probably going to be the offseason that they were replacing Stephon Diggs, right? They did it last year instead, but this was probably going to be the year that they replaced Stephon Diggs. And so they had the cash for that, and then they signed Shakir. Maybe a bunch of that cash goes away. And so it's the roster building aspect more than it is. I mean, I'd love to have DK Metcalf in a Bills uniform. That would be fun, man.
I completely agree with every single word you just said. And even with all the logic that you just made, I still, right now, in the moment, at least anyway, I cannot stop thinking about an offense that has, first and foremost, a really good, obviously the MVP quarterback, but a very good offensive line. It's all going to be back. James
Mhm.
Cook, who's going to be back, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, and Kincaid, who you got to assume in year two are going, well, Coleman year two, Kincaid year three, that are going to make some strides. And then you add DK Metcalf. You, Joe from Queens, have been operation to score 40 a game and you ain't got nothing to worry about. That feels like the guy who can help you do that, man.
Yep.
It's a game changing. I had no intention on spending significant time talking wide receiver today. And now DK Metcalf changes
It
changes.
is it is going to be a kind of a saturated wide receiver market with a lot of these guys getting released towards the end of their deal. Obviously, Kirk is 28, but like Tyler Lockett's, going into his 11th NFL season. Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, like you can add like all these. Amari Cooper, how did I forget him? These guys that are like up there, like in the how much do they got left kind of category. Like you can see that kind of murkying the waters too. And like for a team like the Bills, who don't have a ton of cap space, giving one of those guys like a few $1,000,000 plus incentives because those incentives wouldn't be likely to be earned. So you would actually pay those if they hit them on next year's cap. Like I can see the appeal to that kind of saturated wide receiver market right now, playing those um, aging receivers off of each other as opposed to paying a premium for DK Metcalf.
Quick little bold prediction. Let me ask you a question. Who is a team out there that A has a lot of money, B is desperately looking to get a number one wide receiver, C has a young franchise in the making quarterback, and D probably has more than enough draft capital that they're willing to do what it takes to get that young potential franchise quarterback who's got a lot of money to spend, who, by the way, is in the AFC East as well, not the Buffalo Bills, that could go out and get a DK Metcalf, man. My first thought was, "Ooh, they would be really nice with Josh." My second thought is, I could see the New England Patriots being major players in a deal for and going to get a guy like DK Metcalf. Yeah,
You're not wrong. Like they seem like they seem like one of the top teams that would want a DK Metcalf, and um, especially if you're trying to add talent around Drake May, like, that what you're going to get from DK Metcalf. You don't know what you're going to get from insert draft player, right? And so the Bills did that with Josh Allen. They bring in Stephon Diggs to pair with Allen, kind of get him over the hump. And I do really like the fit of DK Metcalf and the Patriots. The other one that folks are keeping an eye on is the Packers. So those could be some really interesting pairings right there.
yeah, for sure. And look, I'm going to be real clear about this one more time. Depending on when you are listening to this on Thursday, there's going to be other receivers in an already growingly saturated market, like you said. There's going to be other receivers that are either going to get cut or they're going to be on the trade market. And hell, by the time, depending on when you listen to this, there might already be a move. You don't ever know. It might even be the Buffalo Bills that do it. Before we take a break, get to what they have and the free agency stuff and the wish list. I do want to talk quickly about Myles Garrett. The whole Max
Sure.
Crosby thing threw me off. Well, what would that have to do with Myles Garrett? Well, Myles Garrett just signed for what he got. If whoever, if the Bills or somebody trades for Myles Garrett, they're going to want a new contract. Myles, I mean, is going to want a new contract.
Yep.
So you better start thinking right now, folks. If you're the Bills and you're a fan and you want to play Brandon Beane and you're going to give up whatever you're going to give up for Myles Garrett, I feel like the bar right now is going to be the contract extension that Max Crosby got. I don't see Garrett getting worse. Does that influence your desire to trade for Myles Garrett, knowing now what the financial burden of doing that may be, along, of course, with whatever compensation you're given to Cleveland?
I mean, I like you said, I still think that the most likely scenario for Myles Garrett is that he stays in Cleveland and signs some sort of massive new deal now, whatever, more than Max Crosby's 3 or 106 million contract. I still think that's the most likely thing. Like he gets like $35 million a year to stay in um, Cleveland, and that would put him ahead of Nick Bosa, who was number one in average salary at 34 million. I always thought that that was the number he was going to try to beat anyway.
Mhm.
And I mean, I always said the Bills were like maybe a 5% chance, and that's particularly high because I thought the Browns were like, I don't know, 66% chance that he was going to stay there. So I don't think it impacts that too much just because if you were going to be trading for Garrett, you already knew that that's what you were going to have to do in order to do it. You're going to have to trade premium assets and give him that $35 million contract. So, I mean, it takes an option off the table if that was ever really an option. I think Max Crosby always wanted to stay in with the Raiders, but like I know a lot of people really liked him specifically as an option, and so it takes an option off the table. But relative to Garrett, I don't think it changes a whole lot.
Quick little other NFL bit of news. Dak Prescott just got his deal restructured, just opened him like 36 million in cap space for the
Well,
Cowboys.
that was it.
Yeah, Cowboys are looking to be players in free agency. With Lamb too yesterday. They're going to look to make some noise. They're embarrassed by how they've been the last couple of years. Quick thought. Then I want to get to a break. Get back and we'll really hit on your wish list. Last night's show or yesterday's show, I should say, with Joe and Tyler, and especially Joe when it came to this topic. And I'm not trying to just lead you on to go everybody to go listen to it, although you absolutely should. But I will say this after the conversation that I had yesterday, both on the air with Joe and Tyler, and also, and I feel comfortable saying this because I'm not like spilling any kind of major tea, but off the air as well, in a casual conversation that we had over wings. I feel the Bills are dead serious about wanting to acquire Myles Garrett. I don't think it's just content creator driven. I don't think it's fantasy Bills Mafia fan wishland. I think this is a legitimate thing where if Cleveland, and I think the Bills are monitoring what's going on there, if Cleveland is going to trade Myles Garrett, I do think the Bills are going to be very realistic players um, in a trade for Myles Garrett. I get a pretty strong sense that this is like for real. If Cleveland, and they might not trade him. They're saying they're not. Joe doesn't buy it, by the way, and that party said on the air too. So again, I'm not kind of spilling any source here or anything like that, but I think the Bills are very realistically in the mix for Myles Garrett. So
I'd agree with that. There's no reason that they wouldn't be. I mean, I think 32 teams should want Myles Garrett on their team, but I think the Bills, in
yeah,
particular, with what Brandon Beane said at the end of the season, when he's like, whatever it was, like disruptors on the defensive line don't come around every day. Like this is a chance for one to come around. So he doesn't. Brandon Beane enhances the truth. He doesn't usually lie, like straight up lie. And so, like, if this guy's on the market, they're gonna make a push for him. But like I keep saying, I don't necessarily think I know we just talked about James Cook's negotiating position. Obviously, it could be the Browns' negotiating position, like, hey, give us the moon and the stars, and we'll give you Myles Garrett. But I just get the sense that they want to keep him around. They don't want this to be like a hard reset. Um, they were in the playoffs last year, not in 2024, but in 2023.
yeah.
They won. With Joe Flacco, like if they get moderate quarterback play, they could be, not too far away. And Myles Garrett's a big part of that.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I'm not saying they're going to trade him. Who the hell knows at this point? I suppose you could take him for the word, although other people don't. I'm just saying that the Bills are interested in any player that's a good player that potentially is available. They're always going to show some interest, but this is legit interest. On that note, let's take a break, come back, and I want to fly through some of the Bills free agents and what you're looking to see happen if you have it your way coming up over this next week or few weeks. All right, I am back here with Matt Warren from SB Nation. A pretty wild, well, recording this already on a Wednesday. We'll see how Thursday plays out when most of you people are listening to this. All right, I want to get into what we're going to call your free agency period wish list. Don't necessarily have to be free agents, but if things play out the way you would like to see them play out, this is like your wish list of sorts. Let's start here. Here's what I want to do. I want to run through the Bills pending free agents. So let's start with their own before we worry about players around the league or restructures or anything like that. These are guys that are going to be free to sign anywhere come next Monday as things stand. We'll run through these guys, and some of your explanations might be one word answers, but others might be a little bit longer. But are you re-signing these? Again, these are your guys, your wish list. Let's start Reggie Gilliam.
Yes.
Okay. He's back. Amari, that's what I said. Somebody's going to be one word answers. I already know that.
Yeah.
Amari Cooper.
I'm interested in re-signing Amari Cooper, depending on what their wide receiver plan is, right? Like, and I don't think signing Amari Cooper to a 1 or 2 year deal should preclude them from drafting a guy in the first round or whatever else they have planned. But Cooper is on my list of guys that I would consider for that wide receiver spot in 2025.
Okay. Mac Hollins.
I want Mac Hollins back as whatever, wide receiver 4, special teams guy, glue guy, shoe connoisseur, whatever.
Okay. Running back Ty Johnson.
Oh, absolutely. I want that guy back. Like, I mean, the number of snaps that guy played, especially at the third down back, like he's the reason James Cook's not going to get $15 million a year. So yeah, I want Ty Johnson back.
Funny you say that, because on the show, I keep plugging last night's show, but Joe also brought that point up. Look to see what the Bills do with Ty Johnson. If Ty Johnson's back, that says that they're committed to the ball share kind of, what they had last year, or at least something close to that. If they let Ty Johnson walk and they don't really do anything there, you could look to see an increase in the amount of snaps and work that James Cook gets. So Ty Johnson is someone to monitor, and I absolutely hope they re-sign him as well. Quentin Jefferson.
They paid him league minimum last year. If he wants to come back for league minimum, I would gladly have Quentin Jefferson on my roster.
Sure. He's a guy, you bring him to camp. If he makes the team, he makes the team. But you ain't giving him no guarantees. But let's put it that way. I agree with you there. Right. Austin Johnson.
He made considerably more last year because remember, the Bills picked up Quentin Jefferson after he was cut. And so they didn't have to pay him anything because his salary was already guaranteed by the other team. So he made $3.5 million. I don't really want him at $3.5 million. I'm more interested in drafting like that one tech defensive tackle to either put behind Daquan Jones or replace Daquan Jones if they really, really want to do that. So I'm okay with Austin Johnson not being on this team now.
Okay. DeJuan Smoot.
I want them to do something else at defensive end. So, like, I mean, maybe if you want to sign him back to be that like 4th defensive end while you also add a top tier defensive end, or rework Von Miller or whatever it happens to be. But like, he made $2.5 million last year. I mean, I think that's a fine number for him or for your 4th defensive end in general, but I kind of want an upgrade.
Here's my mindset quickly here with the defense, and I agree with you. Now, this is your wish list, not mine, but I'm going to add a little bit of insight here. I want minimum of 2 new edge rushers in the rotation, minimum of 2, maybe even 3. My theory is this: you can't expect to get different results if you keep doing the same thing against the Kansas City Chiefs, or if they fall off the Bengals, the Ravens, whoever it may be in the playoffs, man. The Bills get to that point and they hit a wall defensively. I'm ready for some new personnel. So, you can bounce.
I think that's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Rasul Douglas.
A lot of that's going to depend on his number. I think he's still a starting cornerback in the league. But there's going to be a few different starting cornerbacks that are going to be on the market. And I would love to see them sign a veteran cornerback while also drafting a guy to come in and replace Kaiir Elam, right? Like, they need someone in that role that Kaiir Elam was supposed to step in as far as roster building goes. And so if they can get, Christian Benford obviously signed long-term, they get a veteran in this year and draft another developmental guy, I think you can kind of start that process over. Douglas is a fine one. It's going to depend on his number.
Yeah. DeMar Hamlin.
He's another guy that I would really love to have him on this team as like that 1 year, $2 million kind of guy. Maybe even less than that, but like, he knows the system. He's a replacement level player. You always know what you're going to get from him. I would re-sign him in a heartbeat if he wanted to take that kind of 1 year, like the Cam Lewis deal, like 1 year, $2 million, 2 years, $4.5 million, something like that.
I'm ready to kick you off the podcast right now.
That's fine.
Look, I disagree. Here's why. You're right. What you said about him and what his value is, you are correct. Everything you said is correct. Here's the thing. Sean McDermott might be the one person on this earth who thinks DeMar Hamlin is a quality starting free safety. And if he's there, you're going to be tempted. I hate to
I know.
if you gamble too much and you want to stay away from gambling, all right? If you go to a poker and you're watching people play poker, you're probably going to want to jump in the game. I'd rather not watch the poker game, all right? So, no, go get somebody else. I want something different at safety. I don't want the temptation for DeMar Hamlin to be a starter. Go play
How
in the league
many
another 10 years, just not in Buffalo.
how many third safeties in the NFL are going to have as much experience as that guy? Because
There's
Cole Bishop's going to be your starter. Taylor Rapp's going to be your starter. So, like, he's going to be I would assume he's going to be the top backup.
I agree with you in that. I would say if you consider him a third safety and not a starter, I would be
Yeah.
willing to bet without going through 31 other teams. DeMar Hamlin is probably in the upper half of the third safeties of the NFL. I don't doubt that. I keep going back to I don't trust Sean McDermott to not end up having him start. So I want to deal
Yeah.
with somebody else. I don't want it.
Spot Track has him, by the way, at 2 years, $6 million. So that's a little bit more than that's definitely more than I want to pay. But yeah.
No. All right. Reed Ferguson.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
He's like, I didn't realize this. It snuck up on me. In our In-5 game over at Buffalo Rumblings, Reed Ferguson was one of our players in the last week. And I knew he had started the most consecutive games for the Bills or whatever, but I didn't realize the dude was like 31 years old. Like, he's not a spring chicken anymore. It sneaks up on you sometimes.
Yeah. Last one here. And by the way, Reed Ferguson is perfectly fine. He's steady. He knows the city, loves the city, comfortable.
Yeah.
That stuff matters a little bit. He did get trucked in that Rams game and that block punt, though, but not going to let one mistake over the course of a season make you not want to bring the guy back. Bring him back. You know what you got with him for sure. Last guy, he only recently now has become a free agent because he was restricted, but the Bills aren't tendering him. So Quentin Morris is free now to sign somewhere else if the Bills don't. Are you bringing more? Are you looking to bring Morris back? And I'm sure you'll explain why the Bills didn't tender him. It might not be what people think. Oh, they don't want Quentin Morris. Not necessarily the case. Go ahead.
Right. They've done this a few times over the last few years where the restricted free agent tag was like $3.2 million, and they just didn't want to pay him $3.2 million. So they let the tag go. Then he's free to negotiate with anybody, but like, he's probably going to end up back with the Bills on a veteran minimum deal or just slightly above minimum, which is what he was playing on the last few years. And so it's more about like locking in the 3 point something million hit for a restricted free agent than it was anything about Quentin Morris in general.
100%. All right. So based on this, your offense, I'm going through the guys. You say Gilliam, yes. Ty Johnson, yes. Matt Collins, yes. Quentin Morris, sure. Amari Cooper, if the price is right. But aside from maybe Cooper, you're down to say, I want to run the offense back next year. Because if you resign, I think if you resign Cooper and Hollins, you're basically, for the most part, maybe adding a fourth or fifth receiver, but you're coming close to running it back. You're bringing Ty Johnson back, so your backfield is literally the same. Offensive line is the same. The two top 10 lines are the same. You're pretty much down to say, with the exception of maybe one tweak at receiver somewhere, let's just run it back on offense, which is not a dumb idea. This offense was franchise historically good last year.
Yeah, the wide receiver one position is really the biggest question mark for me on the offense. So I'd run back all the rest of them. And then it's kind of, how is Amari Cooper in the building, which I'm sure he was fine. He's not really a diva, but like, do you think he can take a big step getting a full off season with the Bills and at the age of 31 or whatever it is? So like, it really all depends on that kind of how I want to pivot for the whole season. And we don't know everything about like their negotiations or, whether he even wants to be here or anything like that. So there's a lot of like fluid things with that spot, but I think that's the only position I'd really want to like super mess with right now.
Okay. Let's switch gears now. Guys that you're going to restructure. Mostly this is going to be, to create cap room, but we're guys that you're looking to restructure, not necessarily extend, but restructure.
Right. And we've talked about the Josh Allen thing already several times. I would rather the Bills give a contract extension to Josh Allen, but as Joe Buscaglia brought up in a couple different places now, that contract's probably going to take some time to actually get done. So I think the Bills are going to restructure him right now
Yeah.
and then also give him a different contract extension later in the offseason. So we'll say that right now. We'll just say Josh Allen restructure, but I don't want to pay him $14.5 million in 2025. I want to give him more money than that. And so there's a caveat on the restructure Josh Allen. That opens up, I think, $11 million. So that's all they would need to get under the salary cap, by the way. Another guy I would restructure is Ed Oliver. I know everybody has some differing opinions on him, but they could open up, I think, $10 million with a contract restructure for Ed Oliver if they add void years on the back end of that. So, I mean, it's a significant amount of cap. Again, that would get them under the cap too. That's enough for them to sign one of the top pass rushers or one of the top, I don't know, wide receivers or whoever you want to talk about. So it's a significant amount of money. I do know that Joe Buscaglia also said that he would restructure Deion Dawkins. I'm a little bit more comfortable allowing his hit to just kind of roll for 1 year. Knowing Brandon Beane, he's probably going to restructure it just to create more cap space, but that's fine. The other one I was looking at, where is it? Curtis Samuel. I know that some folks don't want to like quote unquote lock Curtis Samuel in, but if you convert him, restructure him, it frees up $4.8 million in cap space, and then they can still cut him a year from now for less cap space than his cap hit would be if he stayed on the roster. So I still think it's a very doable conversion, even if it's one of those, it like makes next year a little bit more difficult. Because it keeps it doable, I would do that one. And so because of those, like that frees up $30 million or something like that in cap space. So I just think it's really which levers they want to pull and like when they have to pull them. Like they don't have to do the Josh Allen one right now. They don't have to do. I can't remember when. I don't remember when the Ed Oliver like money kicks in, if it's all base salary, and they can do it like later in the offseason if they want to sign a free agent. But like they've got lots of levers to pull. It's just a matter of which order they want to pull them in and who they want to put first.
Is there any, as we're recording this, now we're day Wednesday, the Bills haven't cut anybody. Is there anybody, again, this isn't necessarily what the Bills you think they're going to do. This isn't a prediction. This is what you would do. This is your wish list right now. Is there anybody you're cutting on this roster right now?
Well, Von Miller is the one that sticks out. They can save $8.5 million on the cap if they release him. They have to have a plan in place for replacing him. And so if it's me, I want to give him some sort of pay cut, like $9 million pay cut, $10 million pay cut. And I'd be okay with Von Miller being, a rotational piece on my defensive line. You have already stated today that you're going to kick me off the podcast because you want something else at the defensive end position. And I think that that's a totally logical argument too. So if they don't have a plan beyond Von Miller, a $10 million haircut for Von Miller, you could do a lot worse than that. So, I mean, he's the one guy that you would look at and be like, yeah, they should probably cut him. I mean, looking down the rest of the list, there's not a lot of cap savings to be had from a lot of these other players. Maybe Taylor Rapp. But, I mean, if you cut him, you're just signing somebody else that would take up that cap space. So, I mean, it's pretty much a wash. Mitch Trubisky, Sam Martin. Like, we're talking about, like, guys that are going to save, like, $1 million, like Mitch Trubisky or Sam Martin. Like, yeah, Sam Martin, cut him. It was almost an afterthought in my conversation because it's like the punter. I don't care. Like, sorry.
when it comes to Von Miller, AJ Epinesa, and Dwan Smoot. Smoot's a free agent. Epinesa's contract's probably not going anywhere. Vaughn would be the most likely guy. Those are three edges alongside Rizzo. I have faith that the Bills are going to do. They're going to get two edges, guys. They better get two edge guys. I'm confident that they're going to. Before we jump into your free agents here with our last 10, 15 minutes or so, extensions now. Is there anybody you want to extend right now, or is it wait and see mode for guys like Groot, Cook, etc.? Is there anybody you want to extend right now, or are you in wait mode with everybody?
I think it might be beneficial to extend Connor McGovern right now, just because, like, if he makes another Pro Bowl in 2025, like, I mean, his number's gonna go up considerably. David Edwards is a guy like, do they want to keep him around? He's only 28 right now. He's going to be 29 when the season starts. Do they want him there for longer than 1 year? We talked about how the Bills' offensive line isn't going to turn over, but at the same time, you're also paying your two tackles considerable money. So
Yes.
you can't really pay all of them. You have to, pick and choose. So I'd probably go either McGovern or Edwards, and that probably means McGovern, just because again he played better, Pro Bowl, all that stuff. So he's a guy. Terrell Bernard is a person I'd think about extending if he wants to give you that kind of same discount that Khalil Shakir did. I think they could lock him in at a really good number right now, even though it's not necessarily a premium position. I think they could get him at like 5 million a year or something like that if they can convince him to take that deal. But it would be another one of those Shakir, like, hey, protect yourself. You got injured a couple times in the last year. Like, this is protection against a future injury, something like that. So that's a short list, man. I mean, it's a really short list.
You pretty much just read my mind with that because I'm with you on Connor McGovern. My mindset is this: you extend the player, you pay less now so you don't pay more later. I think
Yeah.
Christian Benford is going to get money. Greg Rizzo is going to get money, whether it's in Buffalo or not. I don't know how much more money Terrell Bernard would make with a good season. What I
Mhm.
do know is if Connor McGovern has another Pro Bowl type caliber season at center, the price of poker in 1 year's time is probably going to go up significantly. I would try to get something done with him now, especially if you can get, like you said, a relatively team friendly deal. He might even be my top priority for that reason because I think you could see his salary go up the most with a really good season.
Yeah. So Spot Track is projecting him at 7.7 right now. He's making 7.5 right now. So like it's maybe they just haven't adjusted it since he made the Pro Bowl. But
Yeah,
say like Creed Humphrey's up at 18 million. Frank Ragnow is at 13.5 million. So like his number could go up to 12 million very, very easily, and to put him in like the top five centers in the NFL. So I, if they like what they see from him, if he's comfortable with Josh and Josh is comfortable with him and all that stuff, like he's the guy that could definitely do this year. And I think it would probably lower his cap hit. I didn't look at that, but it would probably lower his cap hit if they did that. So
sure. I think that's a great move. All right, so that's all the in-house stuff. Let's get to the fun stuff now. I'll use, like I said, you got about maybe 10 minutes or so left. Give me
sure.
a couple free agents. I don't care what position it is. Again, this is your wish list, not mine or anyone else's. You want to improve the team. You want to be somewhat realistic, though. I mean, we all want Metcalf and Garrett and a top safety and a top corner. That's not going to happen. But give me a relatively realistic wish list, free agency or trade, however you want to do it. But give me a couple of additions to this football team you want to see.
Mhm. Chase Young, the pass rusher, is kind of the guy I'm targeting at defensive end, just because it would probably be one of those like shorter kind of incentive laden deals as opposed to say Josh Sweat or some of the other top end
Mhm.
defensive ends like a Khalil Mack. Like I mean that's top of the market stuff. Yeah, Young is has super potential. I know that a lot of people are like, oh yeah, well he was the former second overall pick, and so you're just going by name recognition. Yeah, kind of. Like I mean he's got a lot of potential if he can just like stay healthy and like he's shown a lot of flash. He just needs
Sure.
consistency, and I would love to see him do that in Buffalo. So
Sure.
he's kind of the guy I'm targeting, even though that's definitely not a home run signing, and I think a lot of Bills fans would be disappointed by that. At wide receiver, I keep circling Hollywood Brown because I think the number is going to be right, and again, I'm more worried about the number than anything else. So you can sign him for like on a 1 or 2 year deal. Um, we haven't really seen what his full potential could be with a super strong quarterback in like the prime of his career because he missed most of last year. Um, and again, that's going to be why it brings down his value because he keeps missing time due to injury. So he's like that, the wide receiver I'm looking at. Um,
What
you guys
about
are going to hate me. What?
What about defensive tackle? Are you set? Are you are you willing to go into the season with Daquan Jones alongside Ed Oliver and depending on Dwayne Carter to make a jump? Are you looking to maybe get a guy early and maybe multiple guys through the draft? Are you looking to add a solid free agent to possibly push Daquan Jones out come summertime at camp? What are you thinking about defensive tackle? We haven't talked about that.
I'm okay with Daquan Jones being the starting one tech defensive tackle. If they can upgrade over him, that would be cool. But I'm more of the belief that, especially if they're going to invest free agent dollars at defensive end, they really need an influx of young talent there. And so bringing in that like day two defensive tackle, or even like a fourth round or fifth round defensive tackle, I think makes a lot of sense for them for a two down player like that, who's not necessarily going to be in there on passing downs. And especially with the Bills offense being, good, that other teams are often playing from behind, and that one tech defensive tackle isn't even out there. So um, I'd rather see them draft a guy there to sort of mitigate the big contracts that they have for Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver and whoever they put in Von Miller's spot, and probably Greg Rousseau coming up. Like, so having that kind of cost controlled defensive tackle is probably where I'm going, as opposed to a free agent.
All right. So you're willing to add, like you said, you mentioned a receiver, and you mentioned Chase Young,
Mm-hmm.
a guy with a lot. He's obviously got a high ceiling,
Mm-hmm.
pretty low floor the way he's played so far. But I get what you're saying there. So pretty much those are the two things that you're looking to add via free agency. That's your wish
I,
list.
well, I want a cornerback too. I want a starting cornerback at least as a fallback option. So if you draft another first round cornerback who's not necessarily ready, you
Mhm.
got a guy that can at least step in and play. And like I know it's Dane Jackson is the one I'm looking at because he's got to be cheap. And like I said, it's a backstop. It's a replacement level kind of signing. And so I'm not looking at like a huge ceiling, I don't think Russell Douglas is a high ceiling guy particularly either, but like it's just a different kind of player. So I'm just looking for a guy that can come in, start 17 games, um, and then maybe you draft a guy that hopefully can take over for him at some point.
All right, that makes sense. I'll give you a quick prediction. How I don't know a name, but I think Matt, the way things might play out, that might surprise a lot of people. Is I could see the Bills being significantly bigger spenders in the secondary than most people think. Maybe
Okay.
they go to the defensive line and they say, you know what, I'd get another year on Daquan and we'll draft. I got Greg Rousseau. We're going to give Vaughn a pay cut, him and AJ. Maybe we'll get rid of Smoot and we'll try to land a Leonard Floyd type, a guy. Maybe you could get a Hassan Reddick on a 2-year deal. You avoid a year, something like that. A guy somewhat like him, not a Khalil Mack, but somebody who's an upgrade for sure over Smoot. And they might say, you know what? Our secondary needs to be better. I think a low key issue with the Bills down the stretch, obviously in the Kansas City game, especially once Benford went down, the Baltimore game too. Lamar had a lot of success picking them apart. I don't think the secondary after Benford's very good. Russell Douglas slowed down. I think Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop, and obviously DeMar Hamlin when he was here, very mediocre to we'll say average. Okay, they're average players. I could see the Bills wanting to add a really good player, whether it's a safety, whether it's a corner, aside from Christian Benford, a guy who can make plays. So it wouldn't stun me if they were to say they don't go get that big edge guy, but they might go get a Justin Reed to play safety, or I don't know, a Carlton Davis, somebody at corner who's going to be a good, solid starter. Maybe that's where the sneaky bigger investment is, as opposed to on the defensive line. Now, I know a lot of people might not like to hear that, but I could see it
Right.
playing out that way. I don't think the secondary is very good, and I'm not sold on Taylor Rapp or Cole Bishop. I thought Taylor Rapp was okay. He got beat a lot near the end of the year, and plus he gets hurt a lot too.
Mhm.
So 2 straight years he's missed the playoff elimination losses. You know what I mean? I could see secondary being a point where the Bills spend more than most people think.
Yeah. I still think that cornerback is the big spend at cornerback is going to be Christian Benford at some point in time.
Oh,
And so
100%.
I don't necessarily think, even if they do sign like a quote unquote bigger name at cornerback, it's going to be for an extended contract because
Agreed.
they know that like 2 years from now, Christian Benford is going to be making $20 million a year or whatever. And so, I mean, if you're roster building, you would want to do defensive end, you would want to do the pass rush first, and then kind of backfill safety. Um, but the Bills, at least under Sean McDermott, have shown that they really like paying safeties a lot of money. So maybe that is an option for them. Maybe there is like they upgrade Taylor Rapp and keep him as that third safety that we were talking about with DeMar Hamlin. And they sign like a big name, strong safety to come in. to put next to Cole Bishop. Like they could definitely do that.
I can see it happening. All right, so
Mhm.
real quick here, we got just a couple minutes before I let you go here. We'll play. Somebody just retired. Hunter Renfro announces his
Yep.
retirement. Wow. Hmm. You know what? That might be fake. That was fake news. Fake news here on the podcast because Hunter Renfro just tweeted and said
Oh,
that's not real. Anyway,
okay.
he wasn't going to Buffalo regardless. I'm going to give you a couple scenarios. Give me a quick prediction because by this time next week, we might be able to hit you up and see if any of these come true. Sam
Yeah.
Darnold, just give me a team. The most coveted quarterback, probably by a lot right now on the open market. Where's he going to be a week from now?
It feels like the Titans makes the most sense for him. If he doesn't decide to resign in Minnesota, which I don't know why he would want to resign in Minnesota,
He's
but
too.
it feels like the Titans are the leader for him right now. But I'm not counting out the Giants because both of those teams really need a starting caliber quarterback to save their coaches' jobs, and that means a lot to people.
Yeah. Zach Bond from Philly, 3 years, $51 million. That just came out, 34 million guaranteed. I told you this is a mile a minute right now. All right. So you
Where's
got
their cap space coming from? Nobody has any idea.
it's crazy.
So
Aaron Rodgers, he's obviously going to play somewhere. Where's he going to be? And by the way, I got Darnold going to the Giants.
okay. I, I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be anywhere. I think there's a lot of teams that just don't want that kind of level of distraction. So I don't know. I'm not convinced that Aaron Rodgers is going to play in 2025.
Okay. Last one here for now. Devontae Adams.
Mhm.
This is a good one. I mean, we didn't even talk about him with the Bills. Probably not going to happen. He's talking about West Coast. I've heard a lot about that. Of course, the rumors he always wants to play with Aaron Rodgers. He ain't playing with Aaron Rodgers. If he wants to win football games, he ain't playing with Aaron Rodgers because no team that's a contender is going to sign Aaron Rodgers to start. By the way, I disagree with you. I think Aaron Rodgers can go to the Raiders. Kind of see it coming. However, Adams got traded from the Raiders a year ago. So I don't know. Where do you see Devontae Adams at playing football next year?
Yeah, the Raiders are a different team right now than they were when Adams was there. They got
Very.
new Tom Brady, the new shiny Tom Brady stuff, and all this. They're gonna have a new quarterback because Gardner Minshew's getting released. So like they could be a much different organization. I really don't have a good idea on Devontae Adams and where he's going to end up. He could go to a team like, he said he doesn't want to play in the cold necessarily. And so like, maybe he doesn't go to Boston to play with, the Patriots. But like they're a team that has a lot of cap space. Like the Packers have a lot of cap space, but it seems unlikely he's going to return there. Like I don't have a really good sense of a good fit for him just yet. And I think one team's going to fall in love with the idea of Devontae Adams, and someone's going to pay him a lot of money. Like the Titans are a perfect example of a team that could do that because
Yeah.
to pair him with Sam Darnold and try to get their offense over the hump, as kind of a replacement for DeAndre Hopkins, who they traded last year. Like they just seem like a team that is trying to put pieces together to just win now in a desperation mode. And so they're a team that like makes sense with me, but I don't have a great sense of like perfect fits for Devontae Adams right now.
I agree with you. It's going to be fun to see all this stuff play out. So next week, Matt is going to join me on Wednesday night because there's going to be a lot of stuff that will be going over. I think we're going to do it live too, depending on what time we can hook up. But I think we're going to go live on YouTube anyway. We'll do it live on the video side. There's going to be a ton. Oh, I hope there's going to be a ton of stuff Buffalo Bills wise. Well, there'll be a ton of stuff around the NFL for sure. I mean, this shit's crazy already now, and it's only Wednesday. Hopefully, we will have some fun and exciting things to talk about when it comes to the Buffalo Bills. Appreciate your time as always, my guy.
Hopefully nothing happens between now and when this thing posts.
100%. I almost tweeted something's going to happen before this show comes out on Thursday. I absolutely guarantee it. Regardless, I will be back with another show. And if it does, we'll talk about it the following day. Talk to you guys then.